Coming up next on Insights on PBS Hawaii, how long will Hawaii's landfill space last? Aloha and welcome to Insights. I'm Duane Shimogawa, one of the hosts of Insights on PBS Hawaii. Around our state, our landfills are perilously close to filling up, yet we keep expanding them. Over the years, we've tried different ways to divert rubbish from our landfills. We burn our trash to make energy, we recycle, we compost. We even tried shipping some of our trash to the mainland. But are we tackling the problem or just putting Band-Aids over it? Where will we put our landfills and our trash when the current ones reach capacity? How long will Hawaii's landfill space last? We invite you to join our conversation by calling, emailing, or tweeting your questions and comments. Now to our panel. Timothy Houghton is a Deputy Director of the Honolulu City Department of Environmental Services, which provides wastewater, solid waste, and stormwater services for Oahu, where nearly 3/4 of the state's population lives. Carol Cox is President of EnviroWatch and one of the most prominent environmental watchdogs in Honolulu. Stephen Chang is the Environmental Engineer Program Manager for the State Department of Health Solid and Hazardous Waste Branch. His department is involved with the permitting for landfills across the state. And Henry Curtis is the Executive Director of Life of the Land, a position he's held since 1995. The Hawaii-based Environmental Community Action Group has been involved in more than 40 cases before the Public Utilities Commission. Well, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Let's start with Steve right off the bat. How are we looking out there for our landfills across the state?
Well, I can give you a recap of basically what the status of our landfills, starting with the island of Kauai. We just recently reissued them a permit, and they have a landfill that has about a capacity in Kekaha for about 6 more years. The county of Kauai is going through a process of siting a new landfill, and one of the most recent proposals is to place a landfill in Lihui. And we'll have to see if that'll be viable over the next few years. But again, Kekaha, at least 6 more years at the current site. If we look at Maui, Maui is one of the unique things because we refer to it as the Tri-Islands. They have Molokai, Lanai, and Maui, and unfortunately they have 4 landfills. Central Maui handles the majority of the waste on the island, and they have a capacity of, let me see, about 7.5 years, but they do have the capability to expand because they're working adjacent to a rock quarry. So as that land is quarried out, they'll have space for additional landfill capacity. The Hana landfill, the smallest in the Tri-Islands, has capacity about 45 years. Molokai has about a 1.5 years left, but they are permitted for additional phase, another phase of landfill. We don't have exact capacity of that landfill, but we probably anticipate it to be in excess of 10 more years. The Lanai landfill, again, another small landfill, has a capacity of about 20 more years. There is one other landfill on the site, which is a construction demolition landfill, and it's the Decoit C&D landfill. And they're looking to probably close in about 1 to 2 years. And so the plans right now is that the Central Maui landfill will probably be accepting construction demolition material in their facility. If we move to the island of Hawaii, the Puanalua landfill on West Hawaii has a capacity of excess 20 years. Hilo is probably one of our most unusual sites simply because for the last 10 years, the County of Hawaii has been saying we have 2 more years left in the landfill. And so what has happened over time, most of our landfills begin like this, and what Hilo has been doing is they've been expanding and building it more like a square, getting to a point of square. So we really have no idea how much more capacity they have, but there is what we call sliver fills on the edge of landfill. And so it's probably more like a year-to-year situation. Here on Oahu, we have the Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station. They operate a landfill. They have a capacity of about 45 years. The PVT landfill is currently in operation, and we don't have any real specific data on how much longer they have, but they're in the process of trying to mine C&D material to produce energy. And we've permitted that activity, but we're still waiting to see if the facility that will gasify the wood material they take out of landfill, if they actually will be viable. And finally, the Waimanalo Gulch landfill has a capacity of about, I'd say, over 25 years. And they operate two separate activities. One is the municipal trash and the ash monofill, which is the ash that comes from the HPAR facility.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tim, this brings up a good segue talking about the Waimanalo Gulch. We've looked at a lot of options. What should we be doing? I mean, yeah, we have an amount of time, but I mean, we should be looking at a lot of other options. What can be done?
I mean, our primary options and the things we think are the best approach really is to move everything into some form of, if you will, recycling, whether it's taking our green waste and composting it, whether it's taking the mixed recyclables and getting them through and out and recycled into some reuse program, and then taking the rest of the municipal solid waste, getting it to the expanded H-Power, where we're essentially reducing the amount of waste that goes to the landfill by about 90%. That's our goal. We have a few more pieces to work on that in terms of, right now, we still take sewage sludge to the Waimanalo Gulch landfill. Over the next, probably by the end of the year, we will be in the position of being able to take that sewage sludge at H-Power and be able to burn that. So you will have taken that, and when you take sludge to the landfill, you have to mix it. It gets mixed with bulky items. And so we'll then be able to take those same bulky items and move that over to H-Power. So it's moving toward getting away. The only thing we would take to the landfill, it would be the ash. And then from there, let's find a way to use the ash. The idea is, and the approach we have is, how do we get away from a daily use landfill? And so that's really where we see things going.
Tim, about 4 years ago or so, the plan to ship our trash away, that kind of fizzled away. Is that still on the table, or where are we at?
That is really not on the table at this point. It proved to not really be an economically viable process, as well as the folks that were trying to do that had problems getting actually permits for disposal at a landfill in Washington State. And so and it's an expensive process to be able to take it and just move it. If we can take care of it here, sustainability-wise, that's a better solution.
Let's go to Carol now. You've been at the forefront of a lot of environmental issues. What do you think about the current state of our landfills here in Hawaii?
We should do quite a bit of improvement on the management, diverting. When we talk about directing trash to a landfill, have we abandoned or even incorporated the wise thoughts of the big box stores and packaging? Maybe we don't need certain packages. Bottling, we have a bottle bill, but does some, cat food cans, for example, we've talked about this, they're aluminum, but you don't pay a 5-cent deposit. We need to consider the political impacts from companies and have them to understand that we all play a major role in this by charging a high five. If we're going to have the bottle bill, if we're going to have aluminum can bill, then all cans that are aluminum come in. So we need to rethink that. And curbside, when we talk about green waste, we need to consider green waste as being, we have a contract now. I don't know if it's $2 million or $3 million Hawaiian Earth Products picks up. We're trying to figure out the logics of that when we could use that green waste in the boilers at H-Power. So why are we putting a $2 million contract out? And by the way, that contract has expired a couple of years ago, but it's being renewed.
Yeah, there is actually a new contract.
New contracts, but so we need to look at the big picture and all the aspects of it to reduce trash going into the landfill. There will always be a need for trash landfills because we just haven't arrived with the magic touch. We really don't do much managing of it. It's a hit and miss, but I think it could be done better. We need to revamp our entire structure, the city programs. There's a lot of people involved, but the activities are they're just not delivering, and we need to see a change on that and diverting it from the landfill and encouraging smaller packaging. I mean, I go in and buy a chip for SD card for this big, and I walk out with a package that big. So we need to maybe create some legislation to require.
Henry, in Hawaii, what do you think? Should we worry about where we put our trash?
Definitely. And if we take an analogy for energy, we have a ever-increasing benchmark of how much of our energy comes from renewable sources. A certain date for a certain percentage for 2015, certain for 2020, certain for 2030. Why don't we set up the same benchmark for recycling? I mean, right now the national average is about 35% of all municipal solid waste is recycled. Hawaii is about 40%. And I'm not counting incineration because we're just counting recycling. But San Francisco is at 80%. And their goal in the next decade is to reach 100%. So if we simply have a series of benchmarks and strive to achieve those, we can get to the point where we will not need a new landfill.
How do we do something like that, though? I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but how do we get there? I mean,
nobody knew how we would get there with renewable energy when we passed the law. We passed the law and said, this is the state policy, this is where we should be going, let's pass the law, let's set the goal, and then figure out how we do it. And right now we're ahead of the 2015 goal. We're going to beat the 2020 goal easily, and we're talking about how to reach the 2030 goal in energy. We just need the same kind of track on recycling.
Carol, you've been to many illegal dump sites throughout the years. Why do you feel that these dump sites keep appearing? And I mean, is there a way to curb that?
There is a way. Yeah. You're never going to achieve a 100% prevention to eliminate it because of the various factors that influence it. Convenience centers, for example. Yeah. They're open from 6 o'clock to 5.
Yeah. That's correct.
So when the working man hours, when do you have time on the weekday? So there are times the operation, you may get there in their field. So that person has traveled for 40 minutes with that load. The next thing they'll do, and they find the management system is closed, or station is closed, they find some back road and dump it. But also, people that haul trash are motivated by profit because if they are to dump it at the landfill, they'll charge the generator of it, the homeowner or whomever or the company, to haul it and dump it, but they'll pocket the tipping fee and then find some dark road and dump it. So we need good legislation, but also we need good enforcement. And I don't mean in policing it to such a factor fact that we need to rethink this, and maybe we should incorporate a practice of create an area where when you have something that could possibly be used again, allow the public to place it there and be somewhat of a swap meet in a sense where you can go and pick. That's diversion. That's recycling. And that's preventing, everything that's burned generates gases and waste into the air.
On the recycling topic, Steve, how are we doing in that area, and should we be doing more?
There are also lots of material that's still potentially viable for recycling. The city, the other counties have been working to move to curbside recycling, getting material at the source, separating it out so that it isn't mixed in with all the waste. That makes it a lot easier for the recyclers to be able to get to the valuable material. But our biggest challenge is we don't really have any very viable recycling activities where we can actually take material and produce new materials out of it. Most of the material we send out is to the mainland. Aluminum cans travel all the way to Alabama, get remade into sheets of aluminum, and come back here to Hawaii to be made in new cans. But that is a viable option. We're saving energy, we're saving resources to be able to recycle. The other hand is we have things like glass. The shipping cost to send a 40-foot container of glass to California, just to Oakland, where it can be made into new glass containers. In 2004, it cost $833 to ship that 40-foot container to California. Today, it costs $2,436. That's a 193% increase. The value of the glass that the recycler, how much they get for the glass when it reaches the mill, in 2004 was $516 for just mixed colored glass. Today, it's $225.
But Steve, I hear what you're saying. But for example, in energy, we have an accelerator program. It's a PICTAR, Pacific High Technology Resource Center, has set up an accelerator to find companies that will come here and work on specific energy issues that can be applicable here. We have DBED, which is a state agency that is supposed to be promoting businesses. Why couldn't DBED or an accelerator program come out and say, it's great that we collect this stuff here, but instead of landfilling it, you get 10 jobs for recycling for every one you get in landfill or incineration. So DBED could be diversifying the economy by building reuse centers here instead of having to ship it somewhere else and give somebody else jobs. You pointed out that that they want to extract valuable stuff, and that's why I don't like calling it trash or waste. I like calling it resources or valuable stuff, and it's how you capture that valuable stuff for its reuse.
I agree. I think there are options here in Hawaii. We've looked into many options for glass. We looked at reusing it to making it silicon sand to be used on golf courses. We looked at it as a construction material. And it's very frustrating because there's lots of resistance in the industry wanting to take glass, stockpiling glass, and making it useful. It is a possibility to take glass and remanufacture and produce glass products here. But it requires land, it requires energy, and it's been very difficult uphill climb to get anyone to think about opportunities like that. We've had discussions on people that have created processes in the Far East in Japan, taking our white paper, newspaper, and our junk mail, and it could be converted into toilet paper here in Hawaii. And it seems like that's a really great idea. And I've seen the product. It's nice white toilet paper. But I asked the guy what it's going to take. He says, I need 1 million gallons of water every day, and I need a space to operate this. And it's too expensive to find that land. So part of it is having those agencies that have the ability to create that economic engine and provide the incentives and say, we want these companies to be here, and really provide them viable economic incentives to do that. Until that happens, we're still just getting, up to our eyeballs in material that we cannot use. There is very little value to it. And that's really an unfortunate problem.
And regarding glass,
Yes.
how much glass do we generate, tonnage per year that we generate, and how many tons do we ship out annually?
We ship out almost all of the glass we collect here. I'm sorry, I don't have the amount. Just in the beverage container program, about 30% of the glass containers 30% of the 900 million containers are glass containers. And so if you assume there are 2.4 containers per pound, you can kind of figure it back, calculate what's the total glass that is being brought into the state or used for glass containers, and we get about 70% of that back in the waste stream. The other components we have is the jelly jars, the food jars, the wines and spirits. They're not part of the bottle bill, and they represent a huge amount of our glass containers, and it is very expensive to move those materials because they're heavier containers, and we're just not able to match. We've been working with the counties to try to we've had an advanced disposal fee since 1994 of about 1.5 cents per container, and it's been there for 20 years now, or so it's like
The same number.
The spirits, what companies are exempt, not companies, what types of bottles are exempt from the bill, and then what happened to them if they're not part of the bottle bill? What happened, how are they disposed of? Are they shipped out too?
we provide the monies that we get from the 1.5 cent container for food containers, vases, glass vases that are imported to the state, as well as the wine bottles and the liquor bottles. And we distribute it by per capita to the counties for them to use that monies to promote recycling.
And the challenge for us is that, as Steve mentioned, that disposal fee has not changed in terms of the amount since it was initiated. The costs that he was talking about have steadily gone up. So what has happened is we use the advanced disposal fee money to subsidize, encourage the glass recycler to be able to be in business, even with it shipping it off the island. And we don't get enough money any longer to be able to continue to do that piece. And yet there was some effort to try and increase the rate through the legislature. That didn't happen. You know, that's kind of an incentive to the process of getting it reused in some fashion. And that's one of the things we probably need to look more at. Can we increase that incentive? Because we're not being able to keep those folks in business. And some of them have indicated to us they're going to stop taking that, say at your high fives. They've been taking it, they may stop doing that because they can't make it work economically. They can make the high five piece work, but they can't make the advanced disposal glass work.
Tim, staying with you here, we have a viewer question from Beth Ito. Some neighborhoods still do not have the 3-bin curbside recycling system, and finding recycling centers is not always convenient, as lots of people know. Are there plans to expand this service to the remaining areas, or are there other alternatives the city is looking at?
We've taken the current, the side loader service with the 3 bins just about as far as you can take it in terms of road access for the size of the truck. So the areas that remain with manual collection are largely, you can't get the larger side loader truck in there. We're looking at a couple of things, perhaps trying to do a similar program with manual pickup. And so again, first day of the week, pick up regular municipal solid waste. Second day of the week, pick up either mixed recyclables or green waste, just as we do with the others. We're working on to see how we can make that work. We don't yet have a date of implementation on that, but it is something we're trying to figure out how we can put together so everybody gets kind of the same service. On the other side, where there used to be the white bins out at the schools, and such, to allow people to take stuff to recycle, and you take your cardboard and your glass and your newspapers and such. As we move to curbside recycling for most of the population, those became economically unfeasible for us. If you went from getting a certain amount, you lost 75% of what was being delivered because it was much more convenient for people to put it in their blue bin, which is what we were looking for. So they're no longer viable. Yes, the folks that do the high five centers and such will take a lot of those things today, but there are certainly areas in the North Shore, and some are one of them that don't have many recycling stations where people can take stuff to the convenience centers, they can take stuff to, we're looking at maybe if we can't do pickup, can we put some stuff particularly on the North Shore and LaIE at convenience centers specifically for recycling so people can take it there, or they can take it to the Kawailua transfer station up on the North Shore, trying to find some alternatives, particularly in those larger manual areas.
Here on Oahu, we're still without the plastic bag ban. On the neighbor islands, obviously they've been already used to that. It kind of hits home. My family on Kauai, they still are not used to it. They still want me to bring some home. But how is that? I guess the question for you, Steve. How is that helping out the situation on the neighbor islands?
Well, plastic bags were something that was an alternative to paper bags. As the cost of paper bags rose, the plastic bags were a wonderful thing for the industry because they could advertise their stores and things like that. But unfortunately, when it gets to landfill, the major problem is that so many times these bags will never even touch the face of the landfill. They're up in the air, they're flying, and next thing you know, they're in the trees. And I've been to Maui on the Central Maui landfill, and the trees are just covered with plastic bags. And it's a horrible sight to see.
But you know where the bags come from because they all have the company name on them.
Yes, but it's coming from the landfill because it's right down with the landfill. And so, one of the things is if we're able to wean ourselves from plastic bags and become really more stewards and take our own reusable bags to the store and fill it up. I mean, when you go to Costco, they don't give you any bags. Right. But they'll give you the cardboard cartons that they would have to normally get rid of and pay someone to recycle, but they'll give it to you for free. So it's not that hard to do, but it is a mindset, and so many people don't want to change. And like you said on Kauai, they're still having a hard time grasping that. But other cities have been successful in doing it.
I think here on Oahu, we do have an ordinance in place that gets rid of straight plastic bags as of next July 1st.
That's right.
The current ordinance allows for something called biodegradable plastic bags, which we can't quite figure out what they are. And so there was just recently introduced a bill which had first reading at the City Council this week to change the language in the ordinance to purely ban plastic bags altogether. And it sounds like that's going to work. We're definitely in support of that. And being consistent across the counties makes a lot of good sense to us. It seemed to make it better for the retailers to understand it, and such.
If I might, can we digress just a bit? You spoke of burning sludge.
Yes.
What about Senegro? We remember we've put that up the eggshell at Sand Island, and it was to develop pellets to be used in fertilizers and whatever. Well, question one is, how is that doing? Are we selling it now? Then number two would be, if we are going to be burning sludge, then do we need to build another egg, and do we really need to contract with Senegro the millions of dollars for that if we're going to be generating it and then trucking it and burning it? So if you could speak
certainly.
to that.
And two pieces. One, the Senegro facility is working well. It is generating pellets that are being used for fertilizer. At this point, no, they are not being sold. They are being provided to various people to get them into the reuse process. Sometimes, unfortunately, people have not grabbed onto that process locally, that it's a good fertilizer, even though places like Milwaukee have been doing it for 40 years. But it is getting out there. We do have an issue with handling solids in total at the Sand Island treatment plant. And so basically what we're doing, we're taking care of the Sand Island treatment plant solids with the combination Senegro process with a second egg. So you're going to continue to do pellets there, but for all of the sludge that comes from the other 8 facilities, those will all go to H-Power. So we've got a facility that's good. We're expanding it so we can make sure we can handle our wastewater at Sand Island, because we need to be able to handle the solids. But yet we're going to take care of the rest of the sludge that is going to the landfill and get it diverted to H-Power.
But were we not told initially that we're going to sell it and it's going to be profitable? So, and it's been up there for many years now. So when do we recognize a profit, and why are we We know we're not recognizing a profit as it was presented initially, and then we're engaging in putting a second one. This is, in my opinion, is where we fail in our recycling, because we get sold a bill of goods, but then at the end of the day, we don't get the results that's promised. And so we're mired in more expense and more costs, when in fact, simple programs, if we're going to burn sludge, maybe just a hydrator or dehydrator of a minor sort, and then ship it rather than having a contract with Synagro. And while I'm at it, I noticed that the eggs are leaking. Is that because of the alum? Are they compromised now? Are they rotting from inside?
No, it is not. That's between, as I understand it, that was between two. There's an outer surface and an inner surface, so it's not leaking from inside. It's just really some rust issues on the outside that is being taken care of. But in that sense, again, at the time we went into the Synagro process, and yes, there was a lot of discussion about hoping that it would get to the point of making some money out of selling, but it was not a guaranteed part of the contract. It was something we thought that we would get some money out of it if they were able to sell it, and so would Synagro get some money out of it. In both cases, right now, neither party's getting money out of selling it. But we did not have the option at that point, because the option to burn sludge, and that will be here with us soon, wouldn't exist with the H-Power that existed at that point in time. It is something that we can now do with the third boiler and the second feed train, but we could not have done it at that point in time.
So, Duane, it sounds like a lot of people are tweeting in and Facebooking questions in, yes?
There are a ton of them, but just in case people are just joining us, tonight we're asking, how long will Hawaii's landfill space last? We invite you to join our conversation by calling, emailing, or tweeting your questions and comments, just like you have been. We're going to get to them. You can call 973-1000 here on Oahu and 800-283-4847 from the neighbor islands. Here's a viewer question. Let's just jump right in here and throw this out there. Can Hawaii reduce the size of its packaging through legislation, or is it a national or private issue? Jump in, whoever wants to tackle that. Steve?
It actually works in Europe. Europe has made major strides over the probably 20 years in tackling packaging, because they recognize that it is a major waste stream that we have to deal with. And I've heard people going to buy toothpaste in Europe, and it doesn't come in a box like here. It's just a tube of toothpaste. But that single step does help reduce a huge amount of trash that's being generated. So
I've also seen things like aluminum cans, which are now much thinner than they used to be.
Right.
So it's a different kind of packaging, but you're reducing the amount of
The volume, right?
Yes.
When we consider the number of the size of the package and what the purpose of that size is to deter theft, a big part of that, the size, the package size. Should we risk our environment for the sake of a big box company to ensure that it does not lose any money to theft or shoplifting? See, these are the things that when we talk about recycling, we got to get to the human element of it, these things that drive it. And unless we do that, we're just walking in circles and introducing more costly things when we need to speak specifically to those issues.
It gets to the behavioral issues and the...
Right, and so the question would be, should we be accepting this, and because the big box or the stores themselves want to be able to reduce a loss in theft?
Here's a good question from another viewer. Could privatizing residential trash pickup help reduce the waste people generate?
I don't know that privatizing is necessarily the answer. I think, as you may remember, the administration had introduced a bill to charge a fee for trash pickup. We're one of the very few places that does not charge people for trash pickup. The other people talk about charging per volume of trash pickup. And if it gets a little into you get it economically, and you get a little economic hit. If we we'd give you 3 cans for a base fee, and then we'd charge something extra if you wanted more. begins to get your attention. So you can change that habit, but there's got to be a reason for somebody to say, well, I can just throw everything I got in the can, what's the problem?
And part of the problem is large families that have more bins than would pay the fee, where small families wouldn't, and you'd have the China one-kid solution.
Very, very correct. Yeah, and those pieces are definitely challenges. How do you balance the large family that would need more? Sometimes then you get into the economics of which family are they low income versus,
There's one side of the equation with the residents that live here, and then you have the tourists that come down here. It's a vital industry to Hawaii. Our top economic driver generates a significant amount of waste and impact resources. Here's a viewer question again. What is being done to reduce the waste generated by the tourism industry and to also increase awareness?
Well, one of the, I think, most exciting ways of dealing with that is to have a business competition. Say Pacific Business News published the recycling rates for each of the hotels each week, and then the hotels would be competing with each other for which one was the greenest. And that way, people who are green the hotel would be increasing its business. So a lot of it is using the market in creative ways to encourage people to actually want to recycle more.
And to some extent, we worked with the hotel industry with DBED in trying to recognize businesses or hotels that have taken initiatives, and not just only in waste reduction, but also into energy production, being more efficient, making sure that they're more efficient in energy use. And so that has been one component that has happened. And so we recognize hotels on an annual basis to say they're doing a good job. They signed up to say we want to participate in this process, and we have people going on doing audits of them, trying to say where can you improve, where can you do things. For many of the hotels, recycling is part of an element because ultimately it reduces their costs for waste disposal. If they can take the aluminum cans, the plastic bottles, and get the 5 cents out of that, it reduces their costs for shipping it off to a facility that's going to haul it to the landfill or to H-bar. So,
and these tourist companies or travel companies, a very small community compared to the overall state population, they should be encouraged to initiate their own programs because it's more manageable and be rewarded for that. But right now, it's willy-nilly.
Well, we do have some, and I remember correctly, for some requirements in our city ordinances that requires hotels and places like this to actually separate their waste so that it can be recycled. They can't put their food waste in with every other kind of waste. It's got to go to a food waste recycler. They've got to separate their glass. They've got, so we do have some of that in place. Now it is an ordinance. You occasionally will see some green awards that do show up recognizing some of those hotels and such that really go well beyond just the minimum requirements, because it does in many ways make good business sense. It's actually good business sense for them to be able to say we're green, in that sense.
Here's another.
But there's still more to do.
And people traveling to Hawaii look for those hotels that have a green business process in place, and they will select those over other hotels. And so many of the hotels are now promoting that. So it is an incentive, it's a value, but part of our job is make sure they're honest and they actually are being green, they are recycling, they are reducing their footprint. And that's one of our jobs that we're trying to do right now.
It's a question from Mike in Hawaii Kai, and this actually strikes a nerve for me. Should we, because I'll say it, I'm not a big recycling person. So here's a question: should we charge residents for not recycling, and maybe even on the tourism side too? Should we penalize these entities and individuals?
I think the challenge on a residence is how you're going to be able to go about deciding whether or not they're recycling. If the enforcement cost would get relatively high to be able to go out there and do that. The advantage is that yes, if it still goes in our gray can, at least it gets turned into energy. So it isn't a total loss. It isn't what we prefer, but it isn't a total loss in terms of recycling. But we'd absolutely prefer that the green waste, and we do if a driver notices that there's a lot of green waste in the gray can, we do have some inspectors now that they'll get that information back, and they'll go out and talk to the homeowner. If they see things in the wrong can a lot, they have an ability to give them a notice of violation. So there is a potential, but if we're getting into being a fee, it would seem to be awfully administratively expensive.
If we take, I'd like to do away with the word waste.
Good point.
Number one. And number two, there are a number of different ways of measuring success in recycling. One is the percentage of municipal solid waste. A second one is how many jobs are created. And if you rank Hawaii versus other states and how we're doing on each of them, and the drive is to move us up the list. So we become number one in recycling. We become number one in job creation. We become number one in creating new businesses, instead of the fact that we're sort of like in the middle or slightly above the middle of the pack right now. So we really need to fire up the imagination and set the state goal high and charge forward.
You know, I think the biggest hurdle is that what I call the fear factor, and that is the state and the city has this fear of demanding of the businesses to take charge and demand of them and put on rules. But instead, we forever turn to the residents, which is by the hundreds of thousands, while there's maybe 1,000 here. The problem is manageable in an instance, so to speak. What's wrong with dealing directly with the people that produce it for whatever reason, for advertisement purpose, some packages just to get you attracted to that, or a pair of goggles, but they make it blue in color. So I think it's that fear factor that we have learned to sit between us, our managers, and making a decision. And that fear factor is it's okay to demand and encourage of the businesses. They're not going to go away. They're here for profit. Or recycling wouldn't discourage them from opening. No. So I think that's the problem inherently. We've faced that. And we just need city and state agencies to get over that and start placing these demands instead of talking about legislation. You know.
We got a question here from Leonard in Waikiki. It actually plays upon Carol's comment right there. Do the various city and county and state agencies communicate with each other on these issues? I mean, how often do you guys collaborate, get together, and kind of talk about what's happening out there?
I think we do that periodically, and we have discussions back and forth with the other county administrators. We certainly, on our solid waste side, are talking to Steve's office a lot, trying to get solutions. But kind of the way we can almost demand some of these things that I think on the government side turns you to legislation as the way you can enforce a demand. And that gets to be an interesting process. Yeah.
We work with all the counties, and we're working with them in developing their own integrated solid waste management plans for each island. But the state has been remiss in not updating our 2000 integrated solid waste management plan. And we need to do that because I think we need to rethink some of the things that we have looked at in the past and said it's not viable, and say, maybe we take our crushed glass and we use it as daily cover at the landfills. It's just one step over disposal, but look at that cost to ship it to California and pay someone to take it, right? So those are things that we continue to work. We're always talking to recycling coordinators, finding out what's happening, trying to get a sense of things that they need support for. We worked heavily in trying to help on the glass ADF because we just saw the numbers just not making any more sense.
And the integrated, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The integrated plan that you were talking about, I laughed when you said that because there was an advisory group with that.
Yes.
I know my partner, Kat Brady, was on that. There were business people on it. There were community people on it. There were government people on it. and you came up with a plan, I don't know, almost 15 years ago.
Yeah, well,
And-
yeah, 2000. Right.
Yeah, it was 2000, but you were meeting in 1998, 1999. And yes, it would probably be a good time to have an update on that. Bring in the businesses, bring in the tourist industry, as you mentioned, Carol, bring in the NGOs, bring in the government, the state and the counties, and do something.
Maybe that helps generate that, get the businesses into the game of how do they do the packaging thing better and different.
Now, speaking to Steve coming, when we talk about exploring or even considering placing glass, crushed glass, on the mountaintop to serve as a daily cover, imagine the people in Waianae and Nanakuli getting glass because of dust. And so imagine the pneumonias and the psittacosis and all those things that would, because they get in the inner liner. Who would even lend 5 seconds to such practice, number one? And then secondly, what is, we're talking about daily cover, and that ash goes there. What about the fluff, auto fluff? What is happening with that? We say we won't need a landfill, but we will always need a landfill.
You can never say you won't need a landfill. I think the point is we want to get away from what you might call that daily use landfill. You're not taking sewage sludge there. You're not taking municipal solid waste there. You're not taking recyclables there. You're going to need a landfill. You need a landfill if we have a catastrophic hurricane. You need somewhere to be able to properly take care of things. So you don't quite get away from that, but you can get down to it's not used every day. We've got to you can take the auto fluff, it's largely getting shifted over to H-Power.
It's being burned at H-Power now?
Yes. Again, that's something with the new design of a different feed train and a different furnace, and the third boiler gives us a lot of capability we did not have before that. Things that we could not, they had to go to the landfill before, can now go to H-Power.
Now, how about the ash power generate, what's it burns coal, AES. Where is their ash being deposited? We talked about H-Power. Where is their ash?
To use some of their ash at the PBT landfill
Okay.
for, as they open new cells, they could use that material as a leveling
As a
at the
fire
very
break
bottom
and
and fire breaks between cells to prevent any fires from spraying to the landfill.
Here, a viewer question here. Are there other options out there, other technologies that we're not looking at? Has there been any progress on that?
Well, if San Francisco is recycling 80% and we're recycling 40%, they must have found ways to recycle twice as much. Part of it is you need a really aggressive campaign. You need to have an office dedicated, whether it's at the city or the state level, whatever, an office dedicated to finding ways of working with business and with community to really aggressively recycle the resources, the valuable resources that we have. Picture the old Lo'i system. You used the water, but you didn't capture it. You used the water so the next farmer down could use it, the next farmer down could use it. It's sort of the circular economy. You don't think of things as linear, that you mine it, you use it, and you waste it. Rather, it's circular. You're always reusing products. And we need to get into that mindset. And we need to have an office at some level that really encourages businesses and communities to find ways of increasing the amount of stuff that continues to go around the circle.
Unfortunately, one of the things that provides the success for cities like San Francisco and Portland is the fact that they are within very close proximity with cheap transportation opportunity to send materials to an area that can actually process recyclable materials in large volumes. We are a very small community with very small amounts of material, and when people look at ours and look at the numbers we have, they're saying it's not viable. They can't come in and bring a business, or they won't bring in a business.
But what if you said to a person who wanted to build a super mansion in Kaka'ako, and you said, you can build that mansion, but the first 5 stories are going to be your processing center for processing all the waste that comes from your building. Now, you might have one or two leave, but believe me, that when businesses want to be here, they will find ways to recycle their waste.
And in Japan, they've done that. We're saying within this building, you have to be able to take responsibility for your waste that you generate in the building. So it is viable. It is a matter of how much push you're going to have to make that happen. And that's, I still feel that we're so far away because there's so much resistance. The question you ask, who would suggest putting glass on landfills? Well, I can tell you by the testimony this year in the legislature that the importers of wines and spirits suggested that.
Of course.
You know, because they get to keep the cost of bringing their products at 1.5 cents per container rather than going to 10 cents a container.
Right.
But that is the reality. People are saying you can't keep taxing the businesses more because we're not going to be able to make a viable business here. And that's the thing we continuously hear.
But there is a hidden message in that they don't want revealed. They really don't pay a certain type of bottle. If you could just speak to that, who's exempt and what bottles or product is exempt. If it's a rich bottle of vodka.
a $500 bottle of whiskey pays $0.015 as opposed to your $3 bottle of wine. It's still 1.5 cents. You know, but that's the way. It was a proposal by the industry to come up with this 1.5 cent per container back in 1994. You know, because it worked for them because they got us, the counties and the states, to go away. He said, well, you got some money, so go deal with it. But unfortunately, that is the problem.
Gentlemen, I have a final question for each of you. You know, what should each resident do, you know, to help out the situation?
Yeah, for us, you know, it's really use the systems that are there. Get your mixed recyclables into those blue bins. Get your green waste into the green can. Take if you've got something that needs to go elsewhere, take it, get it back to a store so that it gets recycled. You know, your white goods, things like that. Have the store take them back so that they make sure they get recycled. You can do a lot of those things by just acting correct. Look for those things that aren't packaged in big things like this. Patronize the stores that support that change in packaging. You have some choices and you can help make those choices. And that's really what I see the residents can do as a homeowner to help make those things. If you're looking at green waste, maybe don't grow as much, you know.
Well, as Tim said, use the blue bin. Participate in recycling by taking your beverage containers to a high five center. That's the recycling component. The other two, the 3 R's in our area is reduce, reuse, and recycle. Well, so there are recycling opportunities, as limited as maybe, but they are viable and they do work. You need to reuse things. Sell your old clothes and toys and appliances that you've worn out. They're still good. Take it down to a convenience center or to Goodwill so it can be used by other people that couldn't afford it. Take reusable grocery bags to the store. You don't have to take that plastic bag. No one's forcing you to do it. And I've heard the story that I had my reusable bag in the car and I forgot to take it in the store and I had to take the bag. Well, you don't. You have a shopping cart, all right? When you pick the things off the shelf, you put in a shopping cart, you check it out, take it to your car, you can put in the bag that you forgot to take in the store. Very simple.
Well, let's move on to Carol.
One more important thing is reduce. We have an opportunity to change the style of living, get rid of things that we buy more. One simple thing. Use cloth napkins instead of paper napkins. Try not to use paper plates, right? Because they're one-time throwaway things.
Carol, keep it quick.
Take all of this and buy less, buy bulk. Don't buy packages buy bulk. Use recyclable grocery bags. And the main thing is buy local and shop at farmers market because they don't package the onions and the beans and things of that nature with something that's going to take up space in there.
Henry, real quick.
Duane, if there's one thing to take away from this discussion,
Yeah.
is to change the paradigm. Stop using the word waste, start using the word valuable resources. And thank you.
Wow, well, we have a lot of questions that we didn't get to, but so apologize for that. Thanks guys for coming in. We had a great issue to talk about. And hopefully, people at least learn one thing from it. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time on Insights, the conversation on where we send our children to school. Public versus private school starts well before they enter kindergarten. While the overwhelming majority will choose public schools, Hawaii families send their kids to private schools at a higher average rate than anywhere else in the country. On the next Insights, public or private school? Which is better for your child and your family? That's next time on Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Duane Shimogawa. Have a great night.